Hey everyone, welcome back. For today's deep dive, we are going to be taking a look at a request that we got from you guys to kind of break down this whole thing with Kash Patel and his nomination as FBI director.
Yeah.
So we've got a pretty fascinating WS News article here
Interesting.
that really kind of lays out the whole situation and gives some context, which I know a lot of people have been asking for.
Yeah, well, I think what's so striking is the timing of all of this. We're talking about a potential FBI director who's incredibly close to the Trump administration at a moment when the FBI is, under such intense scrutiny, especially when it comes to the investigations into, what happened on January 6th.
Yeah, and the article really does a good job of laying out how much tension there is, between the FBI and the Trump administration.
Yeah.
Like, it actually mentions that 8 senior FBI officials were either forced to resign or just straight up pushed out.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's hard not to see that as a deliberate move,
Yeah.
To reshape the leadership of the agency.
And I think, this move by the Deputy Attorney General to actually compile a list of, all of the FBI personnel that were working on the January 6th investigations.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that really raises some eyebrows because the Deputy Attorney General oversees the FBI. So this move has people wondering, what are the political motivations behind all of this?
Yeah.
Are they trying to, push out people that they don't agree with?
And then you've got the fact that, like, FBI agents actually filed a lawsuit to try and prevent that list of names from becoming public.
Right.
Which is, you can just feel the fear, in the agency.
Yeah, it really speaks to the uncertainty and fear within the FBI right now. Like you said, are they being targeted just for doing their jobs?
Exactly.
It just adds to that tension that we were talking about before.
And there's also Senator Durbin's request to investigate, whether Patel was actually involved in, pushing those officials out even before his nomination.
Right. I mean, if he was a private citizen at the time and was involved in those actions, it makes you wonder, what were his motivations and could there be a conflict of interest there?
Right.
It just adds another layer to this already very complex situation.
Right. And the article kind of goes into his background a bit. Talking about how he's worked on the House Intelligence Committee, served on the National Security Council, and even held a position at Trump Media and Technology Group, which I believe is the company behind Truth Social.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a pretty close connection to Trump.
Yeah, I mean, his supporters would argue that, this experience makes him uniquely qualified for the role, but, his critics are saying it's a huge red flag.
Right.
They're concerned that he might not be able to be impartial and lead the FBI independently.
It's just really interesting to see, these two sort of narratives colliding here. On the one hand, you have Patel's background, which is like deeply intertwined with the Trump administration. And on the other hand, you have this turmoil within the FBI, fueled by, actions and statements from the Trump administration that kind of suggest they want to control the agency.
And right in the middle of all this, you have the upcoming Senate vote on his confirmation.
Exactly.
The article points out that since the Republicans control the Senate, his confirmation is actually pretty likely, even though every Democrat is planning to vote against him.
Yeah, that potential confirmation really adds another layer to this whole discussion.
Yeah.
It's not just about whether or not Patel is qualified, but also what his confirmation would say about the relationship between the executive branch and law enforcement agencies.
Exactly. It makes you think about the precedent that this might set for future administrations. If a president can just appoint someone so close to their own political agenda to head the FBI, I mean, what's to stop them from misusing the agency?
And it's important to remember that this isn't just some abstract political thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about real people.
Yeah.
Dedicated FBI agents whose lives are being impacted by this.
Absolutely. Can they actually do their jobs properly without political pressure?
Yeah.
It's a big question.
Right. It affects everyone.
It affects all of us because we rely on them to uphold the law and to make sure that our justice system is actually fair.
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to walk this tightrope, between having a strong and independent FBI and then you have the potential for political influence to undermine that whole thing.
The article even uses the word weaponized. Like that the FBI could be weaponized for political purposes.
Right. And that word weaponized. I mean, it's a scary thought, right?
Yeah.
It makes you think of, law enforcement being used to go after political rivals or just shut down people who disagree with them.
It's definitely a dangerous scenario.
Yeah, regardless of, which side you're on, that's something nobody wants to see.
Yeah, for sure. But it is worth pointing out that Patel did address these concerns when he was being questioned, during his confirmation hearing.
Right.
And he said that he would protect FBI employees from any political payback.
He basically said that no one would be fired based on what cases they were assigned to.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
It seems like he's trying to address those fears and assure everyone, both the public and people working at the FBI, that he's going to protect the agency's integrity.
Yeah, but how do you square that with everything we've seen from the Trump administration?
Uh-huh.
Like all that pressure on those senior officials and then demanding that list of names.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like actions speak louder than words, right?
Yeah,
And a lot of people already feel like there's political interference going on.
exactly. And it's not just, general concerns. The article also mentioned some pretty serious accusations against Patel himself,
Right.
including allegations that he lied under oath.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basically, he said that he didn't know about any plans to punish FBI agents before Trump's second term, but then Senator Booker came out and publicly disputed that.
Yeah, that's a serious accusation. If that's true, I mean, it really calls into question his credibility and whether you can even trust him to lead the FBI.
It just feels like we're trying to put together this puzzle, but we're missing some of the pieces.
Yeah.
We have all these accusations and concerns about, political motivations and this Senate vote coming up that could completely change who's running the FBI.
And the stakes are so high, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the FBI has such an important job protecting our country, from terrorism to investigating corruption.
Yeah.
It needs to be able to do its job well, and people need to trust it.
Right. And the article goes into some of Patel's background, too. He's worked as a public defender, a trial attorney in the Justice Department's National Security Division. He's even a legal liaison to Joint Special Operations Command.
Right.
So he's definitely got experience in these areas.
Yeah. I mean, those experiences are relevant to the job of FBI director, for sure.
Yeah.
He knows the legal system. He understands national security.
Yeah, but being FBI director takes more than just legal expertise.
Yeah. Right. You need to be able to lead people.
Exactly.
You need to be able to handle complex situations, especially political ones.
And maybe most importantly, you need the public to trust you.
Absolutely. If people think the FBI is just a tool for politicians, it's going to be really hard for them to do their job.
Yeah, think about it. If the FBI starts investigating something really sensitive,
Right.
and people already think they're biased.
Yeah. No one's going to believe the result.
Exactly, no matter what they find.
And that's a huge problem.
Yeah, so the big question is, can Patel restore that trust if he gets confirmed?
Right. Can he convince people that he's going to be fair and that he's not just there to do Trump's bidding?
That's a tough question.
It is. And honestly, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. I think the only thing we can do right now is really try to understand the situation, all the complexities,
Right.
and really think about what this all means for the future of the FBI and the country as a whole.
Yeah. This whole situation is a reminder that even our most important institutions can be affected by politics.
For sure.
It's up to all of us to stay informed and think critically about what's happening.
Yeah, and to hold our leaders accountable.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that things are done fairly and that the law is applied equally to everyone.
I feel like we've been talking for hours, and we've only just scratched the surface of this whole thing.
Well, it's definitely a complex situation. There are a lot of layers to unpack here.
Yeah, and the article kind of touches on this idea that there's this growing distrust in institutions in general, not just the FBI, but across the board.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this nomination really plays into that,
Right.
The FBI has always been seen as the symbol of, law and order, an agency that's above politics. But when you see stuff like this, these actions that make it seem like there's political interference going on, it just chips away at that trust.
And it feeds into this whole cynicism that people are feeling,
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, where does it all end?
Yeah, if we can't even trust the institutions that are supposed to protect us and uphold the law, then what?
That's the scary part, isn't it? When
Yeah.
people lose trust in these institutions, it creates this void where misinformation and conspiracy theories can just thrive.
Right, and it makes it harder to know what's true and what's not.
Exactly. And that just further divides us as a society.
So where do we go from here? I mean, what happens if Patel is confirmed?
Well, if he is confirmed, he's going to have a really tough job ahead of him.
Yeah.
He's going to have to somehow balance his loyalty to the Trump administration with the need to maintain the FBI's independence.
Because if he doesn't...
He's going to have a hard time convincing people that he's fair and impartial.
Yeah, and the stakes are so high. I mean, the FBI plays such a crucial role in keeping this country safe.
Absolutely. And it's not just about national security either. The integrity of our entire justice system is at stake here.
And let's not forget about the impact this could have on the FBI's relationships with other countries.
Oh, that's a good point.
They work with law enforcement agencies all over the world.
Right. And if other countries start to see the FBI as being politically biased, it's going to be a lot harder for them to cooperate on things like terrorism and cybercrime.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about this in a historical context.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been other FBI directors who have faced political pressure.
Oh, of course.
But this just feels different somehow.
I think you're right. In the past, even when there were political disagreements, there was still this kind of underlying agreement that, the FBI needed to be protected.
Right. Like everyone agreed that it was important to keep it independent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it feels like that shared understanding is starting to disappear.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
It is. And it really highlights how important it is for us to stay informed and engaged.
Yeah, we need to pay attention to what's going on and think critically about it.
We can't just sit back and let things happen. We need to hold our leaders accountable.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, to say the least.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
Definitely. And hopefully you guys found it informative and thought-provoking.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface, but hopefully this has given you some things to think about and encouraged you to learn more about this whole situation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.